Every grandchild got a gift except my son. One by one, my parents handed out expensive boxes across the Thanksgiving table while the kids laughed and tore through wrapping paper. A new bike, a tablet, jewelry. Even my sister's toddler got an envelope stuffed with cash. And my little boy? He just sat there, smiling, waiting for his turn. I kept telling myself maybe they saved his for last, maybe there was a mistake. Then my mother looked directly at him and said, "Oh, we didn't get you anything this year." The room went silent. My son tried to pretend he wasn't hurt, but I saw it. That tiny heartbreak children try so hard to hide. And the worst part? Nobody said a word. Not my father, not my siblings, no one. Because humiliating me through my child had become normal in this family. So I reached under the table, picked up the envelope I'd been planning to give my parents later that night, and suddenly, Thanksgiving became very different. But let me back up.
Because what happened at that dinner table didn't come out of nowhere. This was years in the making. And the truth about why my parents hated me so much, it wasn't what I thought. It was so much worse. Family background. To understand what happened that Thanksgiving, you need to understand my family. The Harrisons. That was our name. And in our town, the Harrison name meant something. My father, Richard Harrison, ran the largest construction company in 3 counties. My mother, Eleanor, came from old money. Together, they built an empire. And they built an image. Perfect family. Perfect house. Perfect children. Except nothing was perfect.
I had 2 siblings, my older brother Mark and my younger sister Jennifer. Mark was the golden child, went to the right schools, married the right woman, gave my parents the first grandchild, a boy of course. Jennifer was the princess, followed my mother's footsteps into social clubs and charity events, married a doctor, had 2 perfect little girls. And then there was me, Rachel, the middle child, the one they never quite knew what to do with. I wasn't interested in construction like Mark. I wasn't interested in charity galas like Jennifer. I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to help people. And when I was 23, I made the biggest mistake of my life, at least in my parents' eyes. I fell in love with the wrong man, Daniel. He worked at a garage, changed oil for a living, had calloused hands and a crooked smile, and the kindest heart I had ever known. My parents hated him before they even met him, because he wasn't from their world. He didn't have money, he didn't have connections, he didn't have a last name that opened doors. So when I told them I was pregnant at 24 and that Daniel and I were getting married, my mother didn't speak to me for 3 months.
My father called me an embarrassment to the family name. Mark laughed and said I was throwing my life away. Jennifer just looked at me like I had grown a second head. But I didn't care, because Daniel loved me. And when our son Leo was born, everything made sense. That tiny baby with his father's crooked smile and my dark eyes, he became my whole world. I thought maybe, just maybe, my parents would soften when they saw him. I thought a grandchild was a grandchild. I was wrong. From the moment Leo was born, they treated him differently. Not openly cruel, nothing you could point to and say, that's wrong, but small things. They never babysat like they did for Mark's kids, never showed up to his birthday parties on time, always got him cheaper gifts. The kind of thing that makes you wonder if you're imagining it. Gaslighting, they call it now. Making you question your own reality. For years, I told myself I was being too sensitive. For years, I made excuses for them. They're busy. They don't know what kids like these days. Maybe we're just not as close. But the truth was they never accepted my family because I didn't play their game, because I chose love over money, because I broke the rules. And in the Harrison family, breaking rules meant punishment. First betrayal signs. The first time I really saw it was at Leo's first birthday party. We couldn't afford anything fancy. We had a small party at our apartment. Balloons, a homemade cake, a few friends from Daniel's work and mine. My parents showed up 2 hours late. Didn't bring a gift, didn't apologize. My mother walked in,
looked around at our tiny living room, and said, "Well, this is cozy." The way she said cozy wasn't a compliment. It was an insult wrapped in silk. My father stood by the door the whole time, like he was afraid our furniture might stain his suit. They stayed 20 minutes, then left without saying goodbye to Leo. I cried that night. Daniel held me and said we didn't need them. We had each other. And for a while, that was enough. But then Daniel got sick. It started with a cough. Nothing serious, we thought. Then he started losing weight. Then he couldn't keep food down. By the time the doctors figured it out, it was too late.
Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. He was 31 years old. I watched the love of my life disappear in 6 months. Watched him go from a strong man who could lift a car engine to a skeleton who couldn't lift his own arm. And through all of it, my parents came to the hospital once. Once. They stood at the foot of his bed for 10 minutes. My mother didn't touch him. My father looked at the machines like they were interesting decorations. Then they left. Mark sent flowers. Jennifer sent a card. And I held Daniel's hand while he took his last breath. Leo was 3 years old. He didn't fully understand why Daddy wasn't coming home, but he knew something was wrong. He would walk around the apartment calling for Daniel, looking under beds, opening closets. "Daddy, Daddy, where are you?" I thought my heart couldn't break anymore, but children have a way of finding the cracks. After Daniel died, I had no choice but to ask my parents for help. I was drowning in medical bills. Our savings were gone. My nursing salary barely covered rent. I called my mother. I swallowed every ounce of pride I had, and I asked if Leo and I could stay with them for a few months until I got back on my feet. She said no. She said the timing wasn't good. She said they had a lot going on. But a week later, Mark's air conditioner broke, and my parents paid for him to stay at a 4-star hotel for 2 weeks while it got fixed. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not anger yet, just clarity. I finally saw the pattern. I wasn't imagining it. They didn't love me. They didn't love my son. And no amount of begging or proving myself was going to change that. So I stopped trying. I got a second job. Worked nights at a nursing home while Leo slept at a neighbor's house. I paid off the bills $1 at a time. I built a life without them. And for 3 years, we had peace. Not happiness exactly, but peace. Leo grew into a kind, gentle boy. He looked just like Daniel. Same smile, same laugh, same way of tilting his head when he was thinking. He asked about his dad sometimes. I told him stories. That once, about the time Daniel tried to fix our toaster and almost burned down the kitchen, about the way he sang off-key in the shower, about how much he loved us. I thought if I could just keep things peaceful, Leo would be okay. But my parents weren't done with us. They just weren't done hurting us yet. Conflict gets worse. When Leo turned 7, my mother called me for the first time in 2 years. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. She said she wanted to make things right. She said she'd been thinking about family and how important it was. She said my father wasn't getting any younger. And then she invited us to Thanksgiving. My first instinct was to say no, but Leo overheard me on the phone. His face lit up. "Grandma and Grandpa? What was I supposed to say? No, sweetheart, they hate us? No, they only invited us because they feel guilty? No, we're not welcome in their world?" I couldn't do that to him. He was already the kid without a father. Conflict gets worse. When Leo turned 7, my mother called me for the first time in 2 years. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. She said she wanted to make things right. She said she'd been thinking about family and how important it was. She said my father wasn't getting any younger. And then she invited us to Thanksgiving. My first instinct was to say no, but Leo overheard me on the phone. His face lit up. "Grandma and Grandpa? What was I supposed to say? No, sweetheart, they hate us? No, they only invited us because they feel guilty? No, we're not welcome in their world?" I couldn't do that to him.
He was already the kid without a father. The kid who wore secondhand clothes. The kid who never got invited to the birthday parties at the country club. I didn't want him to also be the kid whose grandparents rejected him. So I said yes. I told myself maybe things had changed. Maybe time had softened them. Maybe they finally saw Leo for the beautiful boy he was. I was wrong. So wrong. We arrived at my parents' house at 2 o'clock, the house I grew up in. 6 bedrooms, a pool, a tennis court, a kitchen bigger than our entire apartment. Leo's eyes went wide. "Mom, is this really where you lived?" "Yeah, buddy, a long time ago." "It's like a castle." He ran ahead to the front door, excited. I followed slower. I knew what was waiting inside. Mark and his wife Patricia were already there, with their 2 kids, Brandon, 10, and Kyle, 8. Perfect little boys in expensive sweaters. Jennifer and her husband Stephen were there with their daughters, Madison, 9, and Chloe, 6, princesses in matching dresses. Everyone hugged, everyone kissed cheeks.
Everyone said how wonderful it was to be together. And then my mother looked at Leo. She looked at him the way you might look at a stain on a rug. "Oh," she said, "you've grown." Not hello, not it's so good to see you. You've grown. Like she was surprised he was still alive. Leo, sweet Leo, didn't notice. He was too busy looking at the Christmas decorations and the giant TV and the bowl of candy on the coffee table. He asked if he could have a piece. My mother said, "Of course, just don't make a mess." Then she turned to me and whispered, "Try to keep him out of the living room. Your father just had the carpet cleaned." The living room, where the adults sat, where the expensive furniture was, where Leo apparently wasn't welcome. That was the first cut of the day. There would be more.
Major reveal. The afternoon dragged on like a bad dream. Leo tried to play with his cousins, but Brandon and Kyle ignored him. They whispered to each other and laughed. Madison and Chloe wouldn't share their toys. My sister Jennifer watched all of this and said nothing. At dinner, we sat at the giant table. My father at the head, of course. My mother at the other end. Mark and his family on one side. Jennifer and her family on the other. And us? We sat at the corner, the end of the table, where the good china didn't reach, where the conversation didn't flow. Leo ate quietly. He didn't complain about the food, dry turkey and cold potatoes. He didn't complain about the seating. He just tried to be good, tried to be invisible. That was what my family had taught him to do, without ever saying a word. Be small. Be quiet. Don't ask for anything. After dinner, my mother announced it was time for gifts, for the grandchildren. She said it with a smile, like she was Santa Claus, like she was generous. Brandon went first, a brand new Nintendo Switch with 5 games. He ripped it open and screamed with joy. Kyle went next, a drone, one of those expensive ones with a camera. Madison got a gold bracelet with her name engraved. Chloe got a pearl necklace. The toddler, Jennifer's youngest, a girl named Sophie, got an envelope with $200 cash. Leo's turn. He sat up straight, put his hands in his lap the way I taught him, smiled, waited. My mother looked at him, then she looked at me, and she said the words I will never forget. "Oh, we didn't get you anything this year." Leo's smile didn't disappear right away. He kept it there for a second, 2 seconds, waiting for the punchline, waiting for her to laugh and say she was joking. But the laugh never came. My mother just stared at him. The room went quiet. My father stared at his plate. Mark studied his drink. Jennifer suddenly found her napkin very interesting. No one said a word. Leo's smile started to crack. He looked at me. His eyes. Oh, his eyes. They asked a question he couldn't say out loud. Why, Mommy? Why don't they love me? And I didn't have an answer. Because I didn't know.
I didn't know why my parents were cruel. I didn't know why my siblings went along with it. I didn't know why I had been singled out my entire life for the crime of loving someone. But in that moment, something broke inside me. Not my heart. That had broken years ago. Something else. Something cold. Something that had been waiting in the dark for a very long time. I reached under the table. My purse was there. Inside that purse was an envelope.
I had brought it to give to my parents later that night. A peace offering. A desperate, pathetic attempt to earn their love. Inside that envelope were capers. Important papers. Papers that could change everything. I was planning to hand it to them privately. To say, look, I'm still loyal. I'm still family. Please, love my son. But sitting at that table, watching my little boy pretend he wasn't dying inside, I made a different choice. I pulled out the envelope, I stood up, and I said, "Actually, Mom, I have something for you." My mother looked at the envelope like I was handing her a snake. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it," I said. My voice was calm.
Too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm. She opened the envelope, pulled out the papers. Her eyes moved back and forth as she read, and then her face changed. The smugness disappeared. The control disappeared. Her mouth fell open. "What? Where did you get this?" My father leaned over. "What is it, Eleanor?" She couldn't speak, so I spoke for her. "It's the deed to this house, Dad." The room went completely silent. You could hear the clock ticking on the wall. You could hear someone breathing. "He doesn't know, does he, Mom?" I said. "He doesn't know that grandmother left the house to me."
My grandmother. My father's mother. The only person in that family who ever loved me unconditionally. She died 6 months ago. 93 years old, sharp as a tack until the very end. And before she died, she called me to her bedside. She told me she was sorry for how my parents treated me. She told me she had watched them play favorites my whole life, and she said she was going to fix it. In her will, she left the family house to me. Not to my father, not to Mark, to me. But my mother had intercepted the will. She had hidden it. She had told my father that her mother-in-law had left the house to her, to Eleanor, and my father, grieving and trusting, believed her. For 6 months they had lived in that house thinking it was theirs, but it wasn't. It was mine. "I was going to give this to you quietly," I said. "I was going to let you stay here. I was going to be nice about it."
I looked at Leo, my brave little boy, who hadn't cried even though his heart was breaking. "But you hurt my son, in front of everyone, on purpose, to punish me." My voice cracked. I didn't care anymore. "You have spent my entire life telling me I wasn't good enough, that my choices weren't good enough, that my husband wasn't good enough, that my child isn't good enough." Tears streamed down my face. I buried Daniel alone. I raised Leo alone. I worked 2 jobs and slept 3 hours a night, while you went on cruises and bought jewelry for grandchildren who actually mattered to you. My father was white as a sheet. Mark wouldn't look at me. Jennifer was crying, but not for me, for herself, because she knew what this meant. "You have 30 days, I said. "I want you out of my house." Revenge plan. The drive home was quiet. Leo fell asleep in the car, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind was racing. What had I just done? I had just evicted my parents from their home. The home where I grew up. The home where my grandmother had lived for 60 years. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me felt powerful. But most of me just felt tired. Tired of being the one who always backed down.
tired of being the one who always forgave. Tired of being the one who always got hurt. When we got home, I put Leo to bed. He woke up for a second and whispered, "Mommy, am I bad?" My heart shattered. "No, baby, you're not bad. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." "Then why don't Grandma and Grandpa love me?" I didn't have an answer, so I just held him until he fell back asleep. Then I went to the kitchen. I made coffee, and I started planning. Because 30 days was just the beginning.
If my mother had hidden my grandmother's will, what else had she hidden? If she had lied about the house, what other lies had she told? I thought about all the years of favoritism, all the years of exclusion, all the years of watching my cousins get everything while Leo got nothing, and I realized something. My parents didn't just hate me, they were afraid of me, because my grandmother saw something in me that they couldn't control. And if my grandmother had left me the house, maybe she had left me more. I called my grandmother's lawyer the next morning, a kind old man named Mr. Henderson, who had known our family for 40 years. I asked him if grandmother had left any other documents. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Mrs. Harrison, I think we need to meet in person." Secret evidence. I met Mr. Henderson at his office downtown. It smelled like old books and leather.
Like my grandmother's house used to smell. He pulled out a file. A thick file. "I've been waiting for someone to ask," he said. "Your grandmother made me promise not to share this unless you came looking." He slid the file across the desk. Inside were letters. Dozens of letters. All written by my grandmother over the last 10 years of her life. I started reading, and the more I read, the more my hands shook. The letters detailed everything. The favoritism, the lies, the manipulation. But there was more. Much more. My grandmother had been keeping a record of my mother's financial schemes. For years, my mother had been siphoning money from the family business. Small amounts at first, then larger. She had opened secret accounts in my father's name without his knowledge. She had taken out loans against the house she knew wasn't really hers. She had been setting herself up for years, planning to leave my father and take everything. And my father? He had no idea. He was so busy running the construction company, so busy trusting his wife, that he didn't see what was happening right under his nose. But my grandmother saw, and she documented all of it, including the original will, the one that left the house to me, but also a trust fund for my grandmother's great-grandchildren, all of them, including Leo. For years, my mother had been collecting the interest from that trust fund, thousands of dollars every month, money that was supposed to go to Leo and his cousins, money that my mother had been keeping for herself. I did the math. Over 10 years, my mother had stolen almost $500,000 from her own grandchildren, from Leo, from the little boy she pretended didn't exist. I sat in Mr. Henderson's office and I cried, not sad tears, angry tears, because I finally understood. It wasn't that my parents forgot Leo on Thanksgiving. It wasn't that they didn't have room in their hearts for him. They had stolen from him. They had taken money that was rightfully his, and then they had the nerve to humiliate him in front of everyone, to make him feel small, to make him feel worthless, all while lining their own pockets with his inheritance. "I want to go to the police," I said. Mr. Henderson nodded. "You can, but I have a better idea." He explained that my grandmother had set up a contingency in the trust. If the money was ever misappropriated, the trustee, my mother, would be personally liable, not just to pay it back, but with interest and penalties and potential criminal charges. But the best part? The trust gave me the authority to remove my mother as trustee and to name a new trustee, someone who would actually distribute the money to the children, someone like me. "You mean I can take control of the trust?" Mr. Henderson smiled. "You already have. The papers are ready. Just sign." Public exposure.
I didn't go to the police right away. I wanted to give my mother a chance. One chance. I calls her the next day. She answered on the first ring, probably expecting me to apologize. I know about the trust fund, Mom. Silence. I know you've been stealing from Leo and the other kids. More silence. Then her voice, cold and sharp. I don't know what you're talking about. The letters, Mom. Grandmother's letters. I have them all. She laughed. Laughed. You think anyone will believe you? You're the family failure. The nurse who married a mechanic. You think anyone will take your word over mine? Not my word, I said. The bank records. The account statements. The signed documents with your name on them. She stopped laughing. And the house, Mom. I'm not just evicting you, I'm filing a motion to recover back rent. You've been living in my property for 6 months without permission. That's theft too. You wouldn't. Watch me. I hung up. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt sick, because even after everything, she was still my mother. Still the woman who read me bedtime stories when I was little. Still the woman who taught me to tie my shoes. Somewhere, buried under years of cruelty and greed, there had been love once, but I couldn't find it anymore. Maybe it was never really there. Maybe I had just imagined it. The next week, I filed the paperwork. Eviction notice, trust fund transfer, and a civil lawsuit for the stolen money. My mother fought back. She hired a lawyer, an expensive one. She tried to countersue for defamation. She tried to claim that my grandmother wasn't in her right mind when she wrote the letters. But Mr. Henderson had evidence. Medical records showing my grandmother was sharp. Witness statements from nurses who heard her talk about the trust fund. And a video. My grandmother had recorded a video. In it, she sat in her favorite chair, looked straight at the camera, and explained everything. She named names. She gave dates. She showed documents. And at the end, she said something that made me cry all over again. To my granddaughter Rachel, I'm sorry I wasn't braver when I was alive. I should have protected you. I should have protected your beautiful boy. I hope this helps. I love you. I've always loved you. My mother's lawyer saw the video and dropped her as a client this same day. My father came to see me. He looked old, broken. I didn't know. He said, about any of it. The money, the trust, the will. Eleanor told me. She told me your grandmother hated you, that she left everything to her. And you believed her?
He couldn't look at me. You always believed her, I said. Every time she hurt me, every time she hurt Leo, you just stood there and let it happen. You're just as guilty as she is. He didn't argue. He couldn't, because we both knew it was true. Final justice, when he came home to an empty house. No note, no goodbye. Just closets emptied and drawers cleaned out. 35 years of marriage, and she left like he was nothing, like we were all nothing. The judge ruled in my favor on everything. The house was mine, the trust fund was mine to manage, and my mother was ordered to repay the stolen money, now over $600,000 with interest and penalties.
But she was gone. And honestly, I didn't care about the money. I cared about Leo. I cared about the other kids. Brandon, Kyle, Madison, Chloe, little Sophie. They hadn't asked for any of this. They were just caught in the crossfire of their grandmother's greed. So I made a decision. I called Mark and Jennifer. I invited them to the house, my house now. They came, nervous and uncomfortable. They had never been on the receiving end of my power before. I sat them down in the living room, where Leo hadn't been allowed to sit.
and I laid out the truth. "The trust fund is for all the kids," I said. "Every grandchild, including Leo. Your mother has been stealing from it for years, but that stops now." Mark looked ashamed. Jennifer was crying. "I'm not going to punish you for what she did," I said. "You didn't know. But you did know about the favoritism. You did know about the way she treated Leo. And you never said anything."
They didn't deny it. "We're sorry," Jennifer whispered. "Sorry doesn't fix anything, but maybe we can start over. For the kids." I explained my plan. The trust fund would be split equally among all 6 grandchildren. The money would be held until they turned 18, but I would manage it. And every year on Thanksgiving, we would have a family dinner. At my house, because I was in charge now, and things were going to be different. Resolution. We had Thanksgiving at my house that year. My house, the big house, the house my grandmother left me. Not because I wanted the house, but because I wanted my grandmother's spirit to be part of our new beginning. I invited everyone.
Mark and his family, Jennifer and her family, even my father. He came alone, looking lost without my mother. The kids ran around the living room, the same living room where Leo hadn't been allowed to sit. Now he was running through it, laughing, playing with his cousins. For the first time, they treated him like family. Maybe because I had power now. Maybe because they were scared of me. Maybe because they finally understood how wrong everything had been. I don't know. But Leo was happy, and that was all that mattered. At dinner, we went around the table and said what we were thankful for. Mark said he was thankful for second chances. Jennifer said she was thankful for family.
My father just said he was thankful to be there. Then it was Leo's turn. He was 8 years old now, growing so fast, looking more like his father every day. He thought for a minute. Then he said, "I'm thankful for my mom, because she never gave up on me." Everyone got quiet. I felt tears running down my face. "And I'm thankful for my grandma in heaven," he said, "the one I never got to meet, because she loved us even when it was hard." That was my grandmother, loving us even when it was hard, even when she was old and tired and couldn't fight anymore. She found a way to protect us. And now, sitting at that table with my family, the broken, complicated, messy family, I realized something. Revenge wasn't about making my mother suffer. It was about making my son feel loved. It was about breaking the cycle. It was about building something new, on the ashes of something old. My mother never came back. We heard through a friend that she was living in Florida with a new identity. She had lost everything. Her marriage, her family, her reputation, her money. Everything she had stolen, she had lost. But I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt sad. Sad for the woman she could have been. Sad for the grandmother Leo never got to have. But that sadness, I didn't let it consume me. Because I had something better. I had peace. Looking back now, years later, I understand something I didn't understand then. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. It's about who loves you when you have nothing to offer. It's about who protects your child when you can't protect them yourself. My mother never loved me the way I needed her to. She never loved Leo at all. And that's her loss, not ours. Because Leo grew up knowing he was loved. By me. By the memory of his father. By a great-grandmother he never met, but who fought for him from beyond the grave. And by a community of people, friends, neighbors, even his cousins eventually, who saw him for who he was, a kind, brave, wonderful boy. Now he's a teenager. He plays guitar. He volunteers at a food bank. He visits his father's grave every year on his birthday and talks to him like he's still there. And me? I still live in my grandmother's house. I turned it into a home, a real home, with laughter and noise and love. Every Thanksgiving, we still gather around the table. The kids are teenagers now. They fight over the last piece of pie. They roll their eyes at each other. They complain about school and homework and curfews. But they also hug each other goodbye. They show up for each other's concerts and games. They call each other just to talk. I broke the cycle. That's my revenge. Not destruction, not humiliation, not cruelty, but love in the face of cruelty, generosity in the face of greed, forgiveness in the face of betrayal.
Not because my family deserved it, but because Leo deserved to grow up in a world where love wins. And that is the greatest gift of all. If you're watching this and you've been hurt by the people who were supposed to love you, I want you to know something. You're not alone. You're not broken, and you don't have to become like them to heal. Sometimes the best revenge is living well. Sometimes the best revenge is loving anyway. Sometimes the best revenge is breaking the cycle so your children never have to feel what you felt. My son didn't get a gift that Thanksgiving, but he got something better. He got a mother who would burn the whole world down to protect him, and he got a future where he is enough, exactly as he is. No conditions, no favoritism, no cruelty, just love. Pure, simple, unconditional love. And in the end, that's the only gift that matters.